My name is Louisis Harrison, and I'm 71 years old. 2 weeks ago, I drove to my daughter Maya's house, planning to surprise her and my wife, Evelyn. I was halfway up the porch steps, hand raised to knock, when a man I'd never seen before bolted out of the house next door, waving his arms. "Stop," he shouted. "Don't go in. I just called 911. My blood ran cold. 5 minutes later, the police were kicking in my daughter's front door. What they found inside, what I saw, shattered my entire life. But the most horrifying discovery wasn't the blood on the floor. It was the truth my neighbor revealed, a truth that proved the monster I'd been fighting wasn't the monster at all. The scene of the crime. I didn't even have time to process the man's words before the sound of sirens tore through the quiet suburban afternoon. He was an older black man, solid-looking, like he'd been in the service, and his eyes were wide with urgency. He had a strong grip on my arm, holding me back on the sidewalk. "You can't go in there, sir," he said, his voice a low rumble. "I'm telling you, it's bad. That's my daughter's house. My wife, Evelyn, is inside." I tried to pull free, but he held fast. "The police are 2 seconds away. Let them handle it." His name, I'd later learn, was Henderson. He lived right next door. "What did you hear?" I demanded, my voice cracking. He looked back at the house, his face grim. "It started about 10 minutes ago." Loud yelling. A man's voice, then a woman's. Then a crash, like heavy furniture going over and glass shattering. Then the woman screamed. Not just a yell, but a real scream, the kind you only hear once. She pleaded, "Please stop. You're hurting her." Then it went quiet. Dead quiet. That's when I called. My mind was spinning. Hurting who? Maya or Evelyn? My wife was 69, a gentle soul. The thought of anyone laying a hand on her made me see red. I knew, just as sure as I was standing there, who was responsible: Jason, my daughter's husband. I had never trusted that man. He was wealthy, entitled, and always wore a smirk, like he was in on a private joke. He managed an investment fund, drove a car that cost a fortune, and constantly talked down to me. He'd call me Lou and pat me on the shoulder like I was a child. "I'm a retired city planner. I helped design the very streets we were standing on. I am not a child." Evelyn, bless her heart, always saw the good in people. "He's just nervous, Lou," she'd say. "He's trying to fit in." But I saw how he looked at Maya, like she was another possession. And Maya, my vibrant, strong-willed daughter, just faded. She became quiet, agreeable, always seeking his approval. Evelyn had come 2 weeks ago because Maya supposedly had a miscarriage and needed her mother. The story felt thin. Maya sounded strained on the phone. Evelyn's last call to me had been tight. "Everything is fine, Louis. Just, let me handle this. Maya needs me." Handle what? I'd wanted to ask. Now, standing on that sidewalk, my trust felt like stupidity. I should have come sooner. I should have trusted my gut. This was Jason. The breach. 2 squad cars screeched to a halt. 2 officers jumped out, guns drawn, pointed down. "What's the situation?" the male officer barked at Henderson. Violent altercation. Glass breaking. Woman screamed for help. No sound since. The officers moved up, stacking on either side of the front door. Atlanta PD. Open the door. Silence. My heart was a jackhammer. My wife is in there. Evelyn Harrison. My daughter Maya. "Sir, stay back. We need you to stay on the lawn," the female officer commanded. "That's my family." I roared. "Police. Open the door now, or we're coming in." Nothing but that terrible, heavy silence. "Okay, breach it," the male officer said. He stepped back and slammed his heavy boot next to the doorknob. The wood splintered, but the deadbolt held. He kicked again. The frame cracked. On the third kick, the door flew open, slamming against the inside wall. "Clear," the officers yelled, disappearing inside. I couldn't wait. I ran past the officer, Henderson right behind me. I hit the foyer. The smell hit me first. Something coppery, metallic, blood. The house was a wreck. A tall floor lamp was shattered, its shade crumpled. A heavy oak chair was on its side. Glass was scattered across the hardwood floor. "Evelyn!" I screamed. "Maya! In here!" The female officer's voice came from the living room. I ran toward the sound, and then I saw her. My world stopped. At the bottom of the staircase, on the cold beige tile, lay my wife, my Evelyn. Her body was twisted at an angle that bodies shouldn't be. Her eyes were open, vacant, staring at the ceiling. A dark, spreading pool of blood haloed her gray hair. Oh God, no. No, no, no. I stumbled, catching myself on the wall. This wasn't real. I saw her hand, palm up, the simple gold wedding band still gleaming. "Evelyn," I whispered. The voice that came out wasn't mine, a dry, cracking sound. This wasn't just a fall. Evelyn might be clumsy, but she wouldn't shatter a lamp or overturn a chair. This was violence. This was rage. The female officer knelt beside her, fingers pressing into Evelyn's neck. "I've got a pulse," she yelled. "It's faint, but she's breathing. Get a bus rolling now." Breathing. The word was a hammer blow. I surged forward, my knees hitting the hard tile floor. "Evie! Evie! Baby, I'm here." "Sir, don't touch her," the officer commanded. "Paramedics are on the way." I knelt there, helpless, staring at the blood matting her hair, at the unnatural angle of her head. Who could do this to her? My eyes scanned the room, then traveled up the staircase. Maya. She was huddled in the corner at the top of the stairs, her knees pulled tight to her chest, her entire body shaking, racked with sobs. "Maya!" I cried out. "Maya, what happened? Are you hurt?" She lifted her head. Her face was a grotesque mask of terror and tears. She looked past me, staring at something in the room. Then her arm shot out, her finger trembling as she pointed at the man standing a few feet away from her at the top of the landing. It was him, she screamed, a raw, painful sound. He did it. He pushed her. He pushed Mama. I followed her trembling finger. There he was, Jason. He was just standing there by the railing, staring down, still holding his cell phone. He looked dazed. His expensive shirt was torn at the collar, and his face, even from 15 feet below, I saw them clearly, bright, angry red scratches. 3 of them, running from his left temple down his cheek. Defensive wounds. My 69-year-old wife had fought him. "Police! Show me your hands," the male officer roared, his gun unholstered. Jason didn't seem to register him. He just stood there, his mouth opening and closing. The officer didn't hesitate. He slammed Jason against the wall face first. "You have the right to remain silent." "No," Jason finally whispered. "No, she's." "Shut up," the officer commanded, yanking Jason's arms behind his back. The sharp click of the handcuffs echoed in the stairwell. That sound snapped me out of my shock. The ice in my veins turned to fire. "You!" I roared, pushing myself up. "You worthless piece of trash! You did this!" I lunged for the stairs, but Henderson was suddenly there, grabbing me in a bear hug. "Louis, no. Let the police handle this. Don't do something you'll regret. He killed her. He killed my wife." I fought his grip, tears of pure fury blinding me. "I didn't. I didn't." Jason started yelling as they dragged him down the stairs. He was twisting, his eyes wild, looking right at me. "Mr. Harrison. Louis, please. It wasn't me. Check her laptop. Check Maya's laptop. She found, she." Maya's screams drowned him out. "Liar. You monster. You tried to kill her." The officers dragged Jason out the front door. I was left in the ruined living room, my chest heaving. Henderson still had a firm hand on my shoulder. Maya was sobbing uncontrollably upstairs. And my Evelyn was still lying on the floor as paramedics rushed in. Check her laptop. What kind of nonsense was that? The man was a cornered rat trying to shift the blame. My wife and daughter were the victims. I knew it. Jason was the monster. The hospital confession. The fluorescent lights of the hospital waiting room hummed. It had been 6 agonizing hours. The doctor spoke of severe cranial trauma and a medically induced coma. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my daughter Maya a crumpled heap beside me. She hadn't stopped crying. I pulled her close. "It's going to be okay, baby girl," I whispered, the words like ash. "Dad," she finally whispered, her voice raw. "I have to tell you. I'm so ashamed. It's not your fault, Maya. None of this is your fault." "But it is," she insisted, pulling back. "I let this happen. I hid it from you. I hid it from Mom. Jason, he has a sickness, Dad. A gambling sickness." The word hung in the air. Gambling. It clicked. That expensive watch, the new sports car, his arrogant smirk, it wasn't the confidence of success, it was the bluff of a desperate, broken man. I didn't know how bad it was until a month ago, she confessed, the words spilling out. He'd lost everything. He drained our savings account. The whole $80,000. $80,000. The money Evelyn and I had given them for a down payment, gone. I confronted him, she sobbed. He promised he'd stop. He begged me not to tell you. He was embarrassed to face you. "And the miscarriage?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "The reason your mother came down here?" Maya's face crumpled. There was no miscarriage, Dad." I lied. I was so scared. I needed her. I was terrified of what Jason would do when the money was finally, completely gone. So Evelyn had walked into a trap. "She's so smart, Dad," Maya cried. "She must have found the bank statements I'd hidden in my desk." This afternoon, while I was upstairs, she confronted him. She was telling him he was a thief, that she was going to call the police. And then? He snapped. He grabbed her arm, yelling at her to mind her own business. Mom tried to get to the phone, and he shoved her. He shoved her hard with both hands. She flew backward. She hit the bottom stair and, she didn't get up. I held her, rigid with rage. My strong, brave Evelyn, broken on the floor, all because of this leech I had let into my family. The conflicting statement. An hour later, a man in a tired suit stood before me. "I'm Detective Miller," he said. "Your wife is stable, but still in a coma. I need to ask a few questions." I explained firmly. My daughter stated that her husband, Jason Powell, pushed Mrs. Harrison down the stairs during an argument. She saw it all. Detective Miller nodded slowly. "The thing is, Mr. Harrison, we have a conflicting statement. From your neighbor, Mr. Henderson, the man who called 911. What about him?" He's a veteran, says he's got sharp hearing. He's very clear on what he heard. He says he heard the argument, yes. But he distinctly heard a man's voice, presumably Mr. Powell, shouting, "Maya, stop," and, "Maya, you're hurting her." He also says he heard him yell, "Give me the phone. I have to call 911. I stared at him. That's impossible. He's confused. He must have heard it backward. Maybe, the detective said, his eyes unreadable. But there's something else. We ran Mr. Powell's background. He's clean. No history of violence. Your daughter, on the other hand, has a sealed juvenile record, an assault charge from when she was 15. She broke another girl's arm in a fight. I stood up. Now you listen to me, detective. Are you really trying to blame my daughter? That was 20 years ago. Jason is a gambler who stole $80,000 and attacked my wife. My daughter saw it. I saw the scratches on his face. What more do you need? The neighbor is an old man, I insisted, my voice dangerously low. He's probably half deaf. You go do your job and keep that monster locked up. The detective held my gaze for a long moment. Understood, Mr. Harrison. We'll be in touch. He walked away. I looked at Maya. She was trembling. Dad, she whispered. He thinks I did it. No, he doesn't, I said, pulling her back into my arms. He's a lazy cop looking for an easy out. Don't you worry, baby girl. I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you. I believed her. The soldier's testimony. 2 days later, I was back at the house to collect Evelyn's things, a robe, her slippers, small comforts. The yellow crime scene tape felt like a violation. I walked past the dark stain on the tile, refusing to look. As I stepped back outside, I saw Henderson sitting on his porch, watching me. He stood up slowly and walked across the lawn. Mr. Harrison, he said, respectful but firm. I want to thank you for calling the police. You probably saved my wife's life. He just looked at me. Sir, I spoke with Detective Miller. He doesn't believe me, and I have a feeling I need you to believe me. A knot of irritation tightened in my stomach. Believe what? That you heard wrong? My daughter, Maya, told me everything. Jason is a gambler. He stole our money and attacked my wife. Henderson didn't flinch. Sir, with all due respect, I've lived next door for 3 years. I spent 20 years in the United States Army Signal Corps. My hearing is perfect. I can tell you who does the yelling in that house. I gripped the bag handle, my palm digging in. What are you trying to say, Mr. Henderson? I'm saying, he dropped his voice low, that in 3 years, I've maybe heard Mr. Powell raise his voice twice. But your daughter, Maya, sir, she screams. She screams every week, usually about money. Where is it, Jason? You promised me. I can't live like this. And he's always the one trying to calm her down. It's okay, Maya. We'll figure it out. Just calm down. That's the dynamic, sir. It has always been the dynamic. My blood ran cold. This was the exact opposite of what Maya told me. That night, Henderson continued, locking eyes with me, I told the police exactly what I heard. It wasn't the usual screaming. This was panic. I heard your wife's voice first. She was upset. She said something like, Maya, no, that's madness. Then I heard the crash. And then, sir, I heard Jason. He was terrified. He shouted, and I mean shouted, Maya, look what you did. You're hurting her. Then he yelled it again, Maya, get away from her. My mind just stopped. You're hurting her. Henderson finished, his voice barely a whisper. I heard him yell, give me the phone. I have to call 911. That was maybe 30 seconds before the big fall. I heard the scuffle, then, the awful sound a body makes at the bottom of the stairs. And the only person I heard screaming, "He pushed her," was your daughter. After it was all over, I must have staggered. Henderson put a hand out to steady me. That's not what my daughter said," I whispered, the world tilting. "I know, sir," Henderson said, his face etched with a sad, hard pity. "That's why I'm talking to you. I'm just an old soldier, and I've seen friendly fire before. But I also know when someone is lying to cover their flank. Mr. Harrison, I truly believe you are protecting the wrong person." The blueprint. I drove away and parked on a quiet side street. Henderson's words were a poison in my bloodstream. "I think you are protecting the wrong person." It was impossible. Maya was the victim. But my mind kept pulling me back, the detective, the juvenile record, and Henderson's unwavering certainty. Then, like a key turning in a rusty lock, I heard Jason's frantic last words, "Check her laptop. Check Maya's laptop." I was a city planner for 42 years. My job was to see the foundation beneath the facade. I dealt with facts. My entire life was built on looking at the structure of things. And right now, the foundation of my family was cracking. My heart was telling me one thing, but my gut told me I was a 71-year-old fool who had been staring at the wrong blueprint all along. I needed facts. The next morning, I drove downtown and hired a shark of a lawyer, Angela Russo. She dealt in assets, fraud, and cold, hard truth. My son-in-law was just arrested for the attempted murder of my wife, I told her, letting the lie settle. My daughter Maya is the primary witness, but she's a wreck. She can't handle her affairs. I need you to secure her assets. Her husband was a gambler. I need to know how bad the damage is. It was the perfect cover. Maya, tear-stained and trusting, signed the power of attorney at the hospital that afternoon. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered. "You're the only one I can count on." It took Angela Russo less than 24 hours. "Louis," she said when she called. "You need to come to my office now." The truth unveiled. I sat in her stark modern office. Angela didn't offer condolences. She simply slid a thick stack of bank statements across her polished glass desk. "You hired me to find out how much damage your daughter's gambler husband did," she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You were right about the damage, Louis. You were just wrong about who was holding the hammer." I stared at the papers. Withdrawals from the joint savings account. $80,000 gone in 6 months, transferred to offshore gambling sites. This is what he did," I whispered. "No," Angela said. I cross-referenced the timestamps. Every single transfer was made from an IP address registered to your daughter's personal laptop. Jason Powell was verifiably at his office in documented meetings during every single one of these transfers. This wasn't Jason, Louis. This was Maya. "No," I croaked. "No, that's not possible." She told me he was the gambler." Angela leaned forward, her eyes merciless. "She lied. And that, Louis, is not the only lie. You told me your wife was visiting because your daughter had suffered a miscarriage." I nodded, my mouth too dry to speak. "I pulled the local hospital and OB/GYN records for the last 6 months. Your daughter was never pregnant. There was no miscarriage. She was never a patient." The room tilted. The miscarriage was a lie. A cold, calculated maneuver. Then why?" I stammered. Why did Evelyn go to her?" "You tell me, Louises," Angela said. "Why does a compulsive gambler who just lost $80,000, the exact amount you gave them for a down payment, suddenly need her mother to visit?" "She was luring her. She was luring Evelyn there to get more money. My wife hadn't stumbled into an argument, she had been summoned to her own execution. Angela spun her laptop monitor around to face me. Jason's frantic last words, "Check the laptop." He was right. You should have checked. On the screen was an email chain between Maya and Jason, dated 1 week before the attack. My vision was swimming. Angela read the words out loud for me, her voice cutting through the silent room. "It's from Jason to Maya," she said. "Maya, I can't do this anymore. I just checked the joint account. It's empty. You promised me you'd stopped. You promised me. We're going to lose the house, Maya. We're going to lose everything." I put my head in my hands. I couldn't breathe. Scroll down, I managed to say. Angela clicked. The will. Maya laughed again, a sound completely devoid of humor. "Oh, this is rich. This is what it's about." She took a step toward me, and for the first time in my life, I felt a flicker of fear for my own daughter. "Let me ask you something, Dad," she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You're standing here ready to believe a woman who just admitted she lied to you, her husband, for 20 years, about $1.2 million. The words hit me like a slap. She was right. Evelyn had lied to me. "She hid a fortune from you, Dad," Maya pressed, her eyes glittering. "She's a liar. A proven, professional, lifelong liar. And I'm your daughter, your blood." She was using Evelyn's confession against her, turning my sense of betrayal into a weapon. "So, who are you going to believe?" she hissed, her face inches from mine. "Are you going to believe the woman with the brain injury who just confessed to being a master liar? The woman who is going to give our money, your money, to a bunch of strangers rather than her own family? Or," she smiled, a cold, terrible, triumphant smile, "are you going to believe me? Your daughter, the one who has always loved you, the one who is telling you the truth, Jason did this. And Mom. Mom is just confused. She's trying to protect him. Or maybe she's just trying to punish me for finding out about her secret money." I stood there in that sterile hospital hallway, feeling torn in two. Maya's words were venomous, but they were smart. She had found the one crack in my armor, the betrayal by my wife, and she was driving a wedge into it with all her strength. Evelyn had lied. For 20 years, she had watched me pinch pennies and worry about retirement, all while sitting on a fortune. The betrayal stung, and Maya saw it. She was daring me to choose my pride over my wife. For a dark, awful second, she was almost right. But then, as I stared into my daughter's hard, challenging eyes, her face began to blur. And I saw other things. I saw Mr. Henderson, the old soldier, his face etched with sad certainty. "I think you are protecting the wrong person." I saw the scratches on Jason's face. Not chaotic marks, but the parallel, desperate slashes of a blade. She grabbed a knife. She attacked him. I saw Jason's face as they dragged him away, pure, unadulterated shock, and his desperate yell, "Check her laptop." He wasn't trying to blame her, he was trying to show me. And most of all, I saw my wife, Evelyn. Not the woman with the secret, but the woman in the hospital bed. I saw the raw, undilutable terror that filled her eyes the second she saw Maya. The spike on the heart monitor. That wasn't a lie. That was the truth written in a language the body cannot fake. The fog in my head cleared. The anger at Evelyn evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Yes, Evelyn had lied to me about money, born from a place of old fear and family trauma. But Maya? Maya's lie was born from a place of pure, dark, bottomless greed. I looked at my daughter, the stranger wearing my daughter's face. "I believe my wife," I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the tension like a razor. Maya's smirk wavered, the first crack in her composure. What? I believe my wife, I repeated, tasting the words. And I believe the man I hated. I believe Jason. The color drained from Maya's face. Dad, you can't. She admitted she hid money, I said, my voice rising, growing stronger. She didn't admit to pushing herself down a flight of stairs. She didn't admit to faking her own terror. She didn't admit to framing an innocent man. You did that. You did all of this. No, she shrieked, the mask shattering. No, you're wrong. You're a fool. She's lying. She's manipulating you. She's not the one who lied about a miscarriage to lure her mother into a trap. I roared back, my voice echoing in the sterile corridor. She's not the one who drained her family's savings. She's not the one who attacked a man with a knife to stop him from calling 911. He's lying. She's lying. Maya screamed, her hands balling into fists. You're a stupid old man. You'd believe that white trash gambler over your own daughter. She raised her hand, ready to strike me. That's enough, Ms. Powell. The voice was calm, male, and right behind her. Maya froze. Detective Miller was standing there, his face hard, his hand resting on his service weapon. 2 uniformed officers were with him. You're under arrest, Maya, he said. For the attempted murder of Evelyn Harrison and the aggravated assault of Jason Powell. The moment the steel cuff snapped around her wrist, the grieving victim disappeared, and a cornered animal took its place. She lunged, twisting in the officer's grip, not toward the detective, but toward me. You, she shrieked, her voice a raw, ugly sound. You did this, you senile old fool. You believe them over me? Your own blood. The officers were strong, but she fought them with a terrifying, wild strength. You will regret this, she screamed, purple with rage. He's a gambler. He attacked my mother. Dad, do something. Tell them they're wrong. I just stood there, my legs shaking, my heart a cold, dead stone. I watched as the daughter I had raised was dragged backward down the hallway, fighting, kicking, and spitting. You'll never see me again, she howled just before they pushed her into the elevator. I hate you. I hate all of you. The silver doors slid shut, cutting off her scream. The silence that flooded the hallway was the sound of a family ceasing to exist. Detective Miller let out a long, slow breath. Mr. Harrison, we're processing her. We're also processing the immediate release of Mr. Powell. He's on his way out now. My stomach dropped. Jason. I had to face the man I had wrongly accused, despised, and helped put in jail. What do you say to a man like that? I made my way to the hospital lobby and sank onto a chair. Minutes later, the automatic doors slid open, and Jason walked out, flanked by a single officer. He looked broken, unshaven, his expensive suit wrinkled, the angry red scratches on his cheek vivid in the bright light. He saw me and stopped, 20 feet away, his eyes empty. I stood up slowly, my old joints cracking. Jason, I croaked. I faltered. I was wrong. I was so wrong. He just watched me, offering no ease. He didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't. I saw the laptop, I pushed the words out. The lawyer showed me the emails, the gambling. I didn't know. No, he said, his voice hoarse and raw. You didn't. I thought it was you, I stammered. I thought you were the gambler. The monster. He finished the sentence for me, his voice flat. The arrogant white boy who wasn't good enough. The man who attacked your wife. I flinched. Yes, I whispered. He finally slumped onto a chair, dropping his head into his hands. She's good, isn't she? He whispered, muffled. She had me fooled for a solid year. She had you fooled her entire life. I sat a few chairs down, the gulf of shame between us vast. The detective told me that she attacked you with a knife. He let out a dry, bitter laugh that sounded more like a sob. Yeah. She did. When I tried to call 911. Why did you never tell us? Why did you let us believe you were this person? I leaned forward. Louis, he said, using my first name for the first time, his eyes red-rimmed and profoundly tired. The gambling? It's been 5 years. The air left my lungs. It started small, he said, his voice a monotone. I didn't find out until our savings account was empty 3 years ago. I confronted her. She swore she'd stop. And I loved her, Louis. So, I believed her. I fixed it. I took $20,000 out of my own inheritance and put it back in the joint account. I thought I had it under control. But she's a liar, he continued, his voice hardening. She's a brilliant liar. She opened new accounts, took out credit cards in her own name, then in mine, then, in Evelyn's name. I didn't even know that part until the lawyer told me. All this time, he said, his voice rising with a frantic, bitter energy. I've been playing defense. I've been a dam trying to plug the holes she was blowing in our lives. I'm not a gambler, Louis. I hate it. I've spent the last 5 years trying to get her into rehab, trying to pay off shadow debts, trying to keep our heads above water. The arrogance, the smirk I always saw, I whispered, the confession tasting like poison. I thought you were arrogant. I thought you were laughing at us. He looked at me, and I finally saw the real Jason. Not the stereotype, but a 38-year-old man who was utterly exhausted. Arrogance, he said, his voice breaking. That wasn't arrogance, Louis. That was terror. That was the stress of knowing the next paycheck was already gone. That was the humiliation of having to lie to my parents to borrow money. The smirk? That was me trying not to burst into tears in front of you. My prejudice, my 71 years of hard-set conclusions, had been devastatingly wrong. Why didn't you just tell us? I finally asked. Because I was ashamed, he cried out, pounding his fist on his knee. I was supposed to be her husband. I was supposed to fix it and I couldn't. And I was trying to protect you. She's your little girl. I didn't want Evelyn to know what her daughter had become. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could fix the money and you would never have to know how broken she was. I was protecting you from the truth. He broke, dropping his head into his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. When Evelyn showed up, that's why I sent that last email. I was done. I needed her help. I needed your help. I was going to tell her everything that night. And Maya, she saw the email on my phone. He looked up, his eyes swimming in despair. When Evelyn confronted her, Maya just snapped. She pushed her. She pushed her own mother. And when I ran for the phone, she grabbed that paring knife from the kitchen. She just came at me. You won't ruin me, she screamed. He touched the angry scratches on his cheek. This, he whispered. This was your daughter. This was the woman I was trying to protect. The trial. The trial began 4 months later. For long months of watching Evelyn's grueling physical therapy, learning to walk, her balance gone, her left hand trembling. She never complained. I sat with Jason in the waiting room for weeks. We were 2 men bound by a tragedy we couldn't comprehend. When the trial started, I sat in the front row. Evelyn insisted on sitting beside me. She refused the wheelchair. She walked into that courtroom, back straight, leaning heavily on a 4-pronged cane, a quiet act of defiance. Across the aisle, Jason sat alone. He was tired but calm, here to testify against the woman he had once loved. Maya's lawyer, a slick man, began his opening statement exactly as Angela Russo had warned. He attacked us, painting a picture of a dysfunctional family where Maya was the real victim. He described Jason as a volatile, chronic gambler who had isolated Maya. He turned on me, describing me as a controlling, prejudiced father-in-law. But he saved his real venom for Evelyn. He painted my wife as cold, manipulative, and deceitful, a woman who secretly hoarded $1 million fortune while her own daughter struggled. He painted Maya's discovery of the will not as a motive for murder, but as the ultimate act of maternal rejection. He was painting Maya as a daughter who finally snapped under the crushing weight of an abusive husband and a cold, unloving mother. I could feel Evelyn trembling beside me, but she never looked away. Evelyn was the prosecution's first major witness. I held my breath as she made the long, painful walk to the stand. "Mrs. Harrison," the prosecutor began, "can you tell the court about your financial situation, specifically an inheritance you received?" Evelyn's voice was quiet, clear, and strong. "My Aunt Josephine passed away 20 years ago. She left me her estate." "And why did you keep this a secret from your husband and daughter for 2 decades? "My father was a gambler," Evelyn said, her eyes fixed on the back wall. She told the story of a man she loved who had a sickness, of growing up watching her mother hide money in sugar bowls, of the day she found her father after he had taken his own life. "I found him," she said, her voice thick with 60-year-old pain. "I learned that money wasn't just money. It was a poison. It could rot a person from the inside out. When I received that inheritance, I was terrified it would poison us. So, I hid it. I invested it. I told no one." "And why did you change your will?" "Because I saw the sickness in my daughter," she said, her voice finally cracking. "I saw his sickness in her, the little lies about money, the way she always needed more. I found her bank statements. I saw the withdrawals to the online casinos, just like my father." "So, you disinherited her?" "No," Evelyn said, her voice ringing with conviction. "I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to save her. I thought, if she hit rock bottom, if she knew she would get nothing, maybe she would finally agree to get help. I was going to use that money, all of it, to pay for the best treatment in the country. I was going to save my baby girl." A single sharp sob escaped her. "I left the money to the gambling charity in the will as a threat, as a last desperate wake-up call. I never thought she would read it." The defense lawyer stood up. "So, Mrs. Harrison, you admit you lied to your husband for 20 years? "I kept a secret to protect my family." "You lied," he repeated. "You built your entire marriage, your entire life, on a foundation of deceit. A $1.2 million lie. Is that correct?" He hammered at her, painting her as a manipulative woman who chose to cut off her only child when she was in desperate financial trouble. He then turned his gaze on me. "And Mr. Harrison," he said to the jury, "had a problem with Mr. Powell, didn't he? A problem that started the day he found out his daughter was marrying a white man." "Objection. That's a lie," I roared, standing up before I realized I was moving. "Sit down, Mr. Harrison," the judge commanded. The lawyer just smiled. He had planted the seed, a lying, controlling wife and a prejudiced, angry husband. Jason's testimony was next, quiet and heartbreaking. The defense lawyer tore into him, painting him as violent and a cheat. By the end, the jury looked confused. It was our word against Maya's, built on the shifting sands of our family's lies. I leaned over to Angela Russo. "It's not enough," I whispered. "They're making them doubt us." She smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Louis. We saved the best for last. The people call their next witness, Mr. David Henderson." Mr. Henderson walked to the stand slowly, deliberately. He wore a simple pressed suit. He looked directly at the jury, then at Maya, then at me. He looked like a man who was about to do a job he would do right. His voice was low, clear, and certain as he recounted everything he'd told me, the yelling, the escalation, and the desperate cries he heard that night. Then, the defense's turn. Maya's lawyer glided up like a snake. "Mr. Henderson, you're 67. And you're claiming that your hearing is so perfect that in the middle of a chaotic emotional family argument, you could perfectly distinguish every single word and correctly attribute it to the right person?" "Yes, sir. I could," Henderson replied. The lawyer laughed. "All you have is a collection of sounds that you, an old man with a grudge, have interpreted to fit a narrative you heard, but you did not see. Isn't that the truth? Yes or no, Mr. Henderson? You heard sounds. You did not see what happened in that house." The courtroom was silent. I saw a smug, faint smile on Maya's lips. Henderson leaned forward into the microphone, his voice suddenly filling the entire room, cold and hard as steel. "Counselor, you keep asking me what I heard. You keep saying I didn't see anything. It's a yes or no question, sir." "No, son," Henderson said, the authority in his voice making the lawyer flinch. "It is not. I'm an old soldier, as you keep pointing out. We're taught to observe. We're taught to use every tool at our disposal. We don't just listen. We watch." The lawyer's smile faltered. "What is that supposed to mean?" Henderson looked directly at the jury. "It means to answer your question, it's not just that I heard it. I saw it, too." The air was sucked out of the room. I grabbed Evelyn's hand. Maya's lawyer was frozen. The prosecutor stood up smoothly. "Your Honor, redirection. Proceed. Mr. Henderson, please explain to the jury what you meant when you said you saw it." "Well," Henderson said, adjusting his tie. "I have a security camera. A simple motion-activated camera mounted on the corner of my porch. It's aimed at my driveway. But the thing about your daughter's house, Mr. Harrison, is that big, curved bay window on the living room. During the day, it just reflects the sky. But at night, when the lights are on inside, that big curved piece of glass, it becomes a mirror, a giant, distorted fisheye mirror, and my camera is pointed right at it." "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, his voice ringing with triumph. "The state would like to play for the court Exhibit 34B. The defense lawyer was sputtering, but it was too late. "Objection. This is a complete ambush. This was not disclosed." "Your Honor," the prosecutor countered, holding up a piece of paper. "I'd like to direct the defense's attention to the evidence log they received 4 months ago. Item 34B, digital media provided by D. Henderson, neighboring property. They had every opportunity to review this evidence. It is not the prosecution's fault that they, like Mr. Harrison, assumed what was on it." "Objection overruled, Counselor," the judge said, his eyes narrow. "You may have just learned a valuable lesson about doing your homework. Please continue, Mr. Henderson." A faint, tight smile played on Henderson's lips. "Thank you, Your Honor. As I was saying, my camera is pointed right at the reflection in that window." "So ordered." The monitors in the courtroom, the large ones that had been dark, flickered to life. The image was grainy, black and white from the infrared. The angle was from the side, focused on the reflection in the curved glass. It was warped like a funhouse mirror, but it was clear. I grabbed Evelyn's hand. This was the truth. The low murmur rippled through the gallery. Evelyn sat up, her back rigid, her eyes locked on the screen, about to watch the worst moment of her life play out again. The prosecutor was right. It was a silent, ghostly play. The figures were warped, but it was them. I saw my wife, Evelyn. She was standing, her hands up, backing away, her reflection getting smaller as she moved toward the stairs. I saw Jason. He was stressed, terrified, trying to de-escalate. He stepped between them, his hands up in a clear gesture of peace. Then I watched Jason turn his back on her, moving toward the wall, toward the telephone. This was the moment he reached for 911. And then it happened. So fast. Maya saw Jason turn his back. She saw him reaching for the phone. Her body coiled like a snake. And she launched herself, not at Jason, but at her mother. It was not a stumble. It was not an accident. It was a push, a violent two-handed shove aimed straight at Evelyn's chest. My wife, who weighed maybe 120 pounds, never stood a chance. The reflection of her frail body flew backward, hitting the base of the stairs, and vanishing from the curved mirror's sight. Here is the rewritten conclusion to the story, maintaining the emotional depth and narrative flow. The video showed her staggering backward, her arms flailing, and her reflection disappearing instantly as she went over the first step and vanished from the window's view. Evelyn sobbed beside me, a sharp, broken sound. But the video didn't stop. The silent movie continued. Jason's reflection spun around, his mouth a wide black O of pure horror. He looked down toward where Evelyn had fallen. He took 2 frantic steps, disappearing from the reflection. He was gone for a second, then he was back, his face a mask of panic. He ran back to the phone. He was trying to call 911, just like he said. He was trying to save her. But Maya's reflection moved with terrifying speed. She darted out of the window's view toward the kitchen. She was gone for 1 second, 2 seconds, then she was back. And there was something in her hand. Even in the grainy, warped glass, I could see it, something silver, something that glinted in the light of the living room lamp. Jason was at the phone, pressing it to his ear. Maya came at him from his blind side. She raised her hand, the one holding the silver object, and lunged. Jason saw her at the last possible second. He threw his body sideways, raising his arm to block her and dropping the phone. The 2 reflections became a blur, a chaotic, silent, violent tangle of limbs. I saw her hand rise and fall, rise and fall. I saw him fighting her off, pushing her away, his hands coming up to protect his face. The scratches, it was all there. Every lie she had told, every truth he had spoken, was right there, reflected in glass for the entire world to see. The prosecutor's voice was the only sound in the room. Stop the video. The screen went black. The silence in that courtroom was absolute, heavier than stone. I looked at the jury. A woman in the front row had both hands pressed hard against her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. A man in the back row just shook his head slowly. I turned my head and looked at Maya. She was staring at the black screen, her face a waxy, chalk white. Her slick, expensive lawyer stood beside her, his own face pale. He knew it was over. Maya's body began to tremble. A low keening sound started in her throat. It wasn't a cry of sadness, it was the sound of an animal caught in a trap. She looked at me, her eyes wild, pleading, desperate. But there was no victim there, no daughter. There was only a person I did not know. I didn't say anything. I just looked back at her. I let her see the truth in my eyes. And then she collapsed. She didn't faint, she just imploded. Her body slid sideways off the chair, hitting the floor in a boneless heap, her hands covering her head as she let out a wail that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with being caught. The judge slammed his gavel. Order, order in the court. But it didn't matter. The case was over. The sentence. It was 2 days later. The judge didn't waste any time. The jury had returned a guilty verdict in under an hour, manslaughter and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The lawyer's entire defense, his house of cards built on our family's lies, had been blown away by a single grainy reflection. I sat in the front row again, Evelyn beside me in a wheelchair, exhausted by the testimony. Jason sat on my other side. Maya was brought in cuffs. She looked hollow. The fire was gone. She was just a 35-year-old woman in an orange jumpsuit. Her life was over. The judge looked down at her. He spoke of the profound betrayal, the violence, the cold, calculated manipulation. He sentenced her to 20 years in a state penitentiary, 15 for the manslaughter, 5 for the assault. I watched her face as the sentence landed. I was waiting for something, a scream, a sob, a final plea. There was nothing. She just closed her eyes. As they led her away, she didn't look at me. She didn't look at Evelyn. She was already gone. I pushed Evelyn's chair out of the courtroom, Jason walking quietly beside us. We moved through the crowd of reporters, a strange, broken trio. That night, we were back in Evelyn's hospital room. The doctor said she could come home in a week. Jason came by to say good night, standing by the door, awkward, a man with no anchor. "Well," he said, "I guess I'll head out." "Jason, wait," Evelyn said. He stopped. "I need to say something. I need to apologize to you." "Apologize, Evelyn, for what? You're the one." "No," she cut him off, tears filling her eyes. "I did this. Not the push, but the secret, the money. My lie, my fear. It put you in that house. It put you in that position. If I had just been honest with my husband, with my daughter, none of this would have happened. You were just trying to help, trying to do the right thing to protect Maya. And my secret, it turned you into a target and almost got you killed. And Louis, She couldn't finish. She just looked at me, and I knew it was my turn. I stood up and walked over to Jason. I stood in front of this man who was 33 years my junior, this man I had despised, who had shown more strength and character than I had in my entire 71 years. "Jason," I said, my voice thick. "She's right, but she's not the one who needs to apologize. I am." He just looked at me, guarded, waiting. "When I first saw you," I fumbled for the words, "I saw the car. I saw the watch. I saw the color of your skin. And I saw the way you seemed so smug. Louis, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," I said, holding up a hand. "I was a fool. I am a 71-year-old prejudiced, arrogant old fool. I grew up in a different time. I thought you were weak, a privileged man who would never understand struggle. I was wrong. I was so wrong. What I thought was arrogance was terror. It was exhaustion. It was the look of a man trying to hold his world together. I didn't see a man protecting my daughter, I just saw a white kid I didn't think was good enough. And that prejudice, my prejudice, it blinded me. I helped her frame you. When she pointed her finger, I was the first one to pick up a stone. I am so sorry, Jason, for what I did, for what I thought, for the man I was." Jason stared at me for a long time. Then, he just nodded once, slowly. "I don't know what to do now," he whispered. "She's gone. My wife, my life, it's all just gone. I have nowhere to go." "Yes, you do," I said. He looked up, confused. "You're not alone. You're not some stranger. You're family. You're our family, and you're coming home with us." 1 year later. It has been 1 year since I watched a judge sentence my only daughter to prison. The first thing we did after Evelyn was strong enough was sell Maya's house. I couldn't set foot in it again. We let the bank foreclose, the gambling debts were too deep. We let them take it all, the broken furniture, the ghosts. Our old house in Atlanta felt wrong, too quiet. So we sold that as well. We cut all the old ties, packed up 45 years of our lives, and bought a new house, a smaller, single-story place with a small yard. No stairs, that was my one absolute requirement for Evelyn. And it is not just the two of us. Jason lives with us. After the trial, his life had been demolished. He had no wife, no savings, and his company had let him go. He was just as broken as we were. He lives in the guest room. He helps me in the garden, planting the tomatoes and collard greens. He fixes the leaky faucet. He helps Evelyn with her therapy exercises every morning, holding her steady as she practices walking without her cane. He sits with her on the back porch, and they read. He's our son. He is more of a son to me than Maya ever was. It was awkward at first, the three of us shuffling around this new house, three survivors of a shipwreck. But the silence wasn't the old silence of secrets and anger. It was a healing silence. I confessed something to him last week. We were in the garage organizing tools. My hands shake now, a tremor that started the day Evelyn fell. Jason saw me struggling to hang a hammer and gently took it from my hand. You know why I hated you, Jason? I said quietly. He looked at me, guarded. Because I was a white kid from a rich family who you thought wasn't good enough for Maya. That was part of it, I admitted, but that wasn't the real reason. I hated you because I thought you were weak. He frowned, confused. Weak? I told him about my father, a good man, but a porter his whole life, who let people walk all over him. I had sworn I would never be him. When I saw you, I told Jason, I saw my father. I saw the way you let Maya talk, the way you were so quiet. You never fought back. You just absorbed it. I mistook your silence for weakness. I thought my daughter was marrying a man who would let her and the world walk all over him. I despised you for it. Jason stood there, listening, the hammer by his side. I was wrong, I said. Your silence wasn't weakness, son. It was strength. It was the strength to hold your family together. It was the strength to absorb her sickness so that we wouldn't have to see it. You weren't weak. You were the strongest man in that house. You were the man I wish my father had been. He didn't say anything. He just nodded once. And we went back to organizing the tools. The last ghost had finally left the room. We were healing. Evelyn's limp was almost gone, and she was baking again. Jason had found a new job at a small local financial firm. We were building a new life. We were safe. The letter. And that is when the letter came. It arrived yesterday morning, a plain white business envelope. The return address was from the Georgia State Correctional Facility for Women. My hand started to shake. Evelyn saw it. Louis, what is it? What's wrong? I couldn't speak. Jason walked in, saw the letter, and the fragile peace in our home instantly evaporated. It's from her, he said. We have to read it, Evelyn whispered, her voice firm. We read it together. No more secrets. No more hiding. She was right. We had to face this final ghost. I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out a single sheet of ruled notebook paper. The handwriting was frantic, angry. Jason and Evelyn stood on either side of me, and I began to read it out loud. To the people who destroyed my life, I read. I hope you're happy. I hope you're enjoying my mother's money, Jason. I hope you're enjoying my house, Dad. You stole everything from me. You sat there and you lied. You chose him, a lying, manipulative stranger, over your own blood, your own daughter. My voice was steady, but the words were acid on my tongue. You think you've won. You think you're safe in your new little house. But you're wrong. I am counting the days, every single one. I'm learning things in here. I'm getting stronger and you are getting older. You're getting weaker. 20 years is not forever. And when I get out, I am coming back. I am going to take back everything you stole from me. The house, the money, all of it. It's mine. You will pay for what you did to me. All three of you. I finished reading. The last word was underlined so hard the pen had ripped the paper. Well, Evelyn whispered, her hand finding mine again. She hasn't learned a single thing. Jason stared at the floor, his jaw tight. He was remembering the knife. The Lewis Harrison of a year ago would have been raging, terrified of the threat. But I just stood there. The only overwhelming emotion I felt was a profound and bottomless sadness. This wasn't a threat from a monster. This was a desperate, pathetic tantrum from a child trapped in a woman's body. She's still blaming us, Jason said, his voice heavy. Even now, after everything, she still thinks we did this to her. Yes, Evelyn said, walking over to the fireplace. She's just like my father. He blamed the cards. He blamed my mother. He never, not once, blamed himself. It's a sickness, Lewis. It's a sickness of the soul. I looked at the letter in my hand. She thinks we have her money, I said, a slow realization dawning. She still doesn't understand that the money was never the point. She never will, Jason said. How do we live with that, knowing she's coming back? I looked at Evelyn, who was watching the fire, her face calm. I looked at Jason, this good, strong man. This was my family now, forged in tragedy. She's wrong, I said. What? Jason asked. She's wrong, I repeated. She's not coming back to take everything. Because she can't. I held the letter over the flames. She can't take this house because we built it together. She can't take our peace because we earned it. And she can't take us because we chose each other. We faced the truth. She is still living in the lie. Evelyn put her hand on my arm. Jason stood up and came to stand on my other side. I let go of the paper. We watched it together, the three of us. We watched the paper curl, the angry blue ink turn black, then gray. We watched Maya's threats, her rage, her blame, her entire toxic world turn into smoke. It floated up the chimney and disappeared into the bright morning sky. It was gone. The antidote. 6 months later, we were sitting on folding chairs in a brightly lit church basement. We were at a support group meeting for the New Horizons Recovery Center, for families of gambling addicts. A counselor named Sarah stood up. We have some people to thank tonight, she said, her voice warm. This program, our family counseling wing, was going to be shut down. But thanks to a miraculous donation from the New Harrison Powell Foundation, our doors are staying open. We can help over 100 new families this year. A young man, maybe 30 years old, stood up to speak. My wife left me, he said, his voice shaking. I lost my job. I stole from my own parents. I hit rock bottom. This place, this is the only reason I'm still here. I watched Evelyn as she listened. She reached out and took Jason's hand. He squeezed it gently. I sat there and thought about the money. The $1.2 million. It had felt like a curse, a poison that had almost destroyed us. It was the target, the motive, the reason my wife was pushed down the stairs. It rotted her father, and it rotted our daughter. But now, listening to this young man talk about his second chance, I finally understood the other side of it. That money wasn't a curse anymore. It was the antidote. The very inheritance that Maya tried to kill for was now being used to save hundreds of people just like her. The poison, when released with purpose, had become the medicine. This was the legacy Evelyn had tried to create with that final, desperate will. And we were fulfilling it. Not as a threat, but as a promise. Jason was a co-administrator of the foundation. He vetted the programs, he sat in on these meetings. He had lived inside the destructive storm of addiction for 5 years, and he had taken the darkest chapter of his life and turned it into his purpose. When the meeting was over, the young man came up to us. "You're the Harrison Powells?" he asked. "We are," I said. Thank you," he whispered, his eyes wet. "You don't know what you did. You saved my kids. You gave them their father back." We walked out into the cool night air. I pulled into the driveway of our new single-story home. Evelyn was dozing in the passenger seat. Jason was looking out the window, lost in thought. I thought about Maya's letter. "When I get out, I'm coming back." It felt like a story from another lifetime. She was trapped in the past, obsessed with something that no longer had any power. I parked the car and turned off the engine. I looked at Evelyn, her face peaceful. I looked at Jason, this good, strong man who had become my son. This was my family. This was my home. I didn't feel anger anymore. I didn't feel fear. I just felt quiet. We were home, and we were at last at peace. The powerful lesson. This story teaches us about the devastating power of secrets and prejudice. Lewis's judgment of Jason based on appearances blinded him to the real threat, while Evelyn's own secret, born from past trauma, created a target for greed. It shows how addiction and lies can poison a family from within, turning love into betrayal. But most importantly, it reveals that true family is not always defined by blood. It is forged in loyalty, sacrifice, and the courage to face the truth. It proves that even after the deepest wounds, it is possible to rebuild a life of peace and purpose. What would you have done if you discovered a secret that changed everything you believed about your family? If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.